Today, we're discussing how a background investigator will get additional contacts or references that you didn't even provide them. Let's discuss. Hey, before we get started, I have two gifts in the description for you. One's the Getting Started workshop. It's going to walk you through every phase of the hiring process. Plus, there's some hidden bonuses in there, like the candidate eligibility exam. Take it, see where you're at with it. It's going to help you, like I said. The next is a free coaching call with myself or any of the other instructors where you can jump on a call and we'll guide you through anything we can, any specific questions you have about your hiring process or anything else that you might be curious about, as you go through this rigorous and arduous process. We're here to help. Now, let's say you're going through the process and your background investigator says, hey, provide me some work references, provide me some family references, provide me some resident references, and provide me some personal references. Well, there's a lot of things that we can do as we're evaluating a candidate to get maybe some references that you might not have provided. And that could be a reference. There's a bunch, actually. Let's start at the top of the ones that you're going to have difficulties with regardless of it. That could be, say you have a former spouse or, partner. Let's say you have a former partner in any aspect, ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, whatever. And they say, hey, please provide anyone that you've ever, been in a relationship with. And you provide these individuals. What are they going to say about you, right? You're going to provide their contact information and always provide the most updated contact information you can. If you can't get updated contact information, you provide what you can. And then you just advise your background investigator, hey, I haven't had contact with this individual. This is the most recent updated information I could acquire. So you reach out to that individual. Right. Or excuse me, the background investigator reaches out to that individual and says, hey, so-and-so, I'm, Sergeant such and such from ABC Police Department. I'm calling because I'm doing a reference check on one of our applicants by the name of Frank. He put you down as a former partner that you guys used to be in a relationship together. And let's say she says, I used to be in a relationship with Frank. What can I help you with? And then they'll ask a series of questions and try to get information. And if, say, that person says, my family didn't really like him too much. I mean, they just didn't really understand our relationship, but my sister really didn't like him. I'm like, oh, okay, well, do you know what it was about your sister's relationship with Frank that had an issue? No, I don't. Hey, would it be all right if I had got your sister's contact information and if she can't talk, that's understandable, but I can just reach out to her, maybe send her an email or give her a call real quick. And then next thing you know, your former partner is providing another reference that you never intended to provide. You didn't even want to provide your former partner, let alone, because usually relationships aren't always amicable, but you didn't even want to provide your former partner or former spouse. And now they're providing additional references that based on the fact that they had confrontations or issues with you. Not a good look, right? That's one way it can go. And it's just, there's nothing you can do about that other than the fact is if you still have a relationship with that individual, advise them, hey, please just answer the questions and don't elaborate, right? But at the same point, you could go into another aspect. Say you provide your best friend, right? Say, hey, this is Sergeant so-and-so with ABC Police Department. Frank put you down as a reference. So said you guys knew each other for 15 years. Okay. Yep. I've known Frank since, this date, yep. We see each other pretty regularly. We, play golf, whatever. Okay. Yeah. Excellent. So I'm just looking at all this and there's trick questions that they can ask your references. I've went over that in some other training videos, but the most typical one is, hey, yeah, so I see that Frank has done XYZ. Do you know anything else? Frank put down that he's done XYZ. Do you know anything else besides that incident that he's ever done? Let's say it was smoke marijuana, right? Hey, I see Frank has smoked marijuana, a couple times in the past, do you know of any other substance that he's used? And, say I've never smoked marijuana, right? Let's say I've never smoked marijuana or whatever candidate has never done whatever substance. And your friend, not knowing that, right, but not trying to throw you under the bus, throws you under the bus and says, "No, outside of that, I don't know of any other substances that he's ever used. I don't think he's ever used any other substance." Well, now, you know, I've never used it, but the investigator just tricked my my friend into saying that I have used it, or at least into some capacity, to where he can come back to me and say, "Frank, I was speaking with your friend here, and he said, that he recalled you using these substances." And now you're at a conundrum because, are you calling your friend a liar, but you don't really know how the context of the conversation was because you weren't there. And so you say, "No, I think there was some confusion." Hopefully you've talked to your friend at this point. "No, I think there was some confusion. He said that you said outside of this that I listed that, and I never listed that." "Oh, my mistake. I might have said that." So I think he was just agreeing that he didn't know of any substances that I've ever used because I've never used a substance. That's really the only way to answer that question, if it, or with the facts, your actual facts. It doesn't have to be you've never used a substance. It's just whatever your facts are. That's ways they can trick your references and things like that. But another way they can trick it is into giving them more references. So, "Hey, yeah, so Frank put you down. Hopefully he advised you that we'd be asking you guys for another two references that or three references that you two both know, that know Frank, right? So someone else that knows Frank, that's had some type of interaction with him, can you Frank should advise you that you would have had to provide me with that, even though I would have never known that, right?" And they say, "Oh man, I can't really think of anyone, I guess his family member." "No, no, we have all his family members, who's someone else that you and Frank have met, and you can just at least provide me some information." Even if they don't have the contact information, right? Let's say, "Oh, well, I know me, Frank, and John Smith have hung out together at some point. Why, but I don't have John's address or anything like that." "Okay, so John Smith, and where did you guys hang out?" Right? "Oh, we hang out at this party, or at this event, or at this golf outing, or whatever, or we met here. How many times have you guys hung out together?" "I don't know, once or twice." Well, here's what can happen. If my friend provides them with the contact information, they're going to pick up the phone and call so and so, and so hasn't been prepped. And when I say prepped, they're just unaware that law enforcement is going to be reaching out because I didn't contact them. They're not a reference, right? So now they're going to get blindsided by law enforcement, which is always a bad call. "Hey, this is Sergeant so and so with ABC Police Department. I need to talk to so and so. Is this so and so?" Right? Unfortunately, these investigators think everything is a criminal proceeding, and they go into it very much with poor articulation and poor rapport building. And they'd actually get more information if we taught them how to build rapport a little bit better. But they go into it thinking, "Law enforcement, you're going to answer my questions," when really they don't have to, right? Especially if it's a reference. "Hey, sorry, Frank never," if this was John Smith, right? Let's simulate I'm John Smith. If this was John Smith and say, "Hey, yeah, this is John Smith, but Frank didn't tell me that he was putting me down as a reference. I'm going to have to call him to make sure this is on the up and up. Is there a contact number I can get back with you at?" That's what you would hope a friend would say. And then they would contact you and then be like, "Hey, Frank, I'm getting called by this detective. Is there any way that I can, is this real?" And I'd be like, "Wow, dude, I'm sorry. I didn't list you. I don't know how he got your contact information, but yeah, I am applying to that department. I don't know what questions he's going to go ask, but I can call him. But yeah, if you want to call him back and just, I guess if he can answer the questions that he's asking you, but I'm going to call him too and see what's going on." Now, what they're going to tell you if I call, that detective and I say, "Hey, Detective so-and-so, this is Frank Magaha. I'm calling because, I just got a call from my friend John, who I never listed as a." "Yeah, well, we're doing a thorough background check and we're reaching out to individuals that we know or believe that you've had contact with, just to be sure." What are you going to say? "No, don't do that." No, because you're applying for the job and they know that. They take advantage of it, right? Not saying it's right. They just do it. And there's nothing technically illegal about it, right? And this all happened because your first friend provided that contact information, because so-and-so could have lied and said, "Hey, yeah, did Frank advise you that we might be asking you guys for additional references, or individuals that you may collectively know together?" No, right? But they can say that because they're allowed to. Um, if you to stop this and curb this all from the beginning, hopefully your friend would say, "No, Frank didn't advise me of that. I'm not aware of that, and I don't know who Frank would want me to say is someone that we collectively know together because I don't know who has a I don't know who has an in-depth understanding of them as I do or not. So I'll have to talk with Frank and then get back with you, right? Hopefully that's what they would say, right? And there's nothing the investigator can do about that. They can say, no, 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 please don't run this by Frank. That will jeopardize. No, no, that's made up and none of that is real. But but that's what you would hope a reference would say. And this is why I tell you to prep your references, not because you're trying to hide anything, but because investigators will try to manipulate a situation, right? And it's not that it's not it's not that they're being malicious. They're just trying to make sure they're getting a good candidate that's not lying or trying to hide anything. So you're not mad about them, but it doesn't mean you don't study for a test, right? So with this specific thing, if they're going to reach out to a reference and say, hey, if they ask you to provide you any additional information, any other references or any other contacts, um, I don't know if they will. I don't know if they won't. Just tell them, hey, you didn't know that they would be asking, and you'd have to see who I'd want you to provide, and just have them say that. That's what I would kind of do in a very professional manner while prepping your references. So when I say prepping your references, you shouldn't be asking anyone to be a reference without talking to them. You shouldn't just be putting someone down as a reference. You should be picking up the phone, calling them, seeing them in person, and saying, hey, I'm applying for a law enforcement officer position with A, B, and C departments. You might get an email, you might get a phone call. Sometimes their calls are restricted or private. If you get a voicemail from any of these people or a text message from any of these departments, I am applying to them. If you can, would you be willing to be a reference for me? Yeah, I'd be willing to be a reference. You don't need to go into the whole spiel before. Okay, great. Hey, so some of the things that I know about is, obviously they'll ask about my character and everything and just be honest, provide them, with what you know. But they might ask you for additional references and things like that. I don't know if they will. I just heard sometimes they do that. Um, and if they do that, just tell them you don't have any other references until you talk to me because I don't think they'll do that, but I've been advised that sometimes they'll try to get additional references, but they won't tell me about it. So, but they'll say that I know that they're going to ask that I know they're going to ask you for more references. So I don't know that. I don't know if they will. They didn't ask me for that. I'm only providing them the references they asked me for. So if they ask for additional references, please don't provide them anything without talking to me first. Right. And here's the thing is there's nothing they can do about this, right? Law enforcement, their ability, even in the performance of their duties, is so limited, right? They have to follow it. Now, if they don't follow it, then they're subject to disciplinary actions or termination or lawsuits. So we're not going to go down that field, but just keep that in mind. Another thing I'll see them do is when they're talking to a reference is they'll say, hey, so is so-and-so still in contact with so-and-so, right? They might have done, their background check on me and saw that I had contact with so-and-so, and they'll say, hey, yeah, so we see that, Frank had contact with this individual, or they might say out a list of names, and maybe those individuals have a criminal history, or maybe those individuals are not individuals I listed for character references for whatever reason they're looking up. They might say, so do if Frank still has communication and still talk with so and so, right? It might be it's a family member that you're estranged from, whatever, and they'll use your other references, whether it be your family members or your friends or whatever, to confirm or deny what you said. And so if they say, let's say I haven't had a relationship with a family member in a long time, and I say, hey, yeah, I have minimal contact with this individual. The only time I ever see him is during these extreme circumstances, and it's very brief. The communication's limited, right? Because let's say that member has a troubled past. But then they call one of my main references, my one of my main friend references, and says, hey, yeah, so Frank is, applying. This is who I am. Okay, great. So one more question I have for you is Frank's relationship. He said his relationship with his sister is very limited. He gave me a date of the last time they hung out, but when was that again? right? Or yeah, so Frank's, you know, evolving relationship, or Frank's um back on speaking terms with this family member, to the best of your knowledge. And if your friend says, oh yeah, 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 is that what he stated? Yeah, yeah, they saw each other on this date. Or that can be another thing, right? That's how they can use that. And then they'll contact that individual, right? And say, hey, this is so and so. I'm reviewing an application for Frank McGaha. I heard that you guys recently hung out on this date, and they'll contact that individual just by doing public information checks and getting contact information. And then if that individual says something that it goes against what I've said, then that will be conflicting, and that's another thing that's going to hurt your background process. So there's all these different ways that they can use your references to get additional references, or to follow up with additional people to confirm something that you never even listed, right? So it's hard. It's really hard. One of the questions on your background process will be, hey, have you ever associated or hung out with anyone that has a criminal history? And maybe you have. Maybe someone's gotten a DUI before, or maybe someone's gotten an arrest before, or something like that. Maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a friend, or maybe it's an old associate that you haven't seen in a while. Well, you're going to list that individual, and then they're going to ask your other references, well, what's Frank's relationship with this individual? Right. But they're going to do it very, very tactfully. You're not even going to realize it's a question, and then you're going to answer it. And that gives them something to come back to the candidate, to you, about, and say, hey, so I spoke with your references, and they were mentioning something about your relationship with this individual who you said you don't have a relationship with anymore. I'd like to get in contact with this individual and ask some questions. You see what so that's how it can expand. That's how it can grow. So you got to be careful. You have to be careful about how you prep your references, for the sheer fact that they're going to use kind of, I don't want to say trickery, right? Because it's just an interrogation technique. They're going to use interrogation techniques to try and get additional information out of individuals. And it's not malicious, right? They're not trying to say, gotcha. They're just trying to make sure you're not lying about anything. But at the same point in time, the reason why I say be specific, don't elaborate, is because a lot of times, even though you might have that lockdown, your references might not, and they might elaborate and say something that might be a perspective and not true, yet that may still affect your hiring process. That's why you always prep your references and get them ready to go. And once again, you want them to be honest. You tell them to be honest, but at the same point in time, leave out perspective, right? So it's really hard. You're working all this hard to be specific, not elaborate, to get that training in, to get your articulation down, but you're not considering about the lack of articulation that your references have. That's one way that it can really, really make an impact. I hope this helps. Listen, those gifts are in the description for you. The Getting Started workshop is going to walk you through every phase of the hiring process, plus the free coaching call with myself or any of the other instructors. We have expanded hours down there to try and meet your needs. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.